Alright everyone, welcome along to another episode of Martin's World. Guys, I hope you're all doing good out there, and before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to just remind you, if you want to support the show or support the fight for cannabis legalisation in Ireland, you can do so by signing up to the patreon.com/Martin's World, or you can also make a donation in the form of bitcoins on martinsworld.ie. All of the funds that will be gathered there will be used to establish a cannabis activist hub here in Cork City, so we can bring together the cannabis community, so we can be better organised and better represented in the fight for cannabis legalisation and in any policies that will be put forward there, as cannabis will be legalised soon in Ireland, and I'm really sure of that anyhow. So guys, on with the guest then. It is none other than Stephen Garland I get to introduce today. Stephen Garland in 2016 was officially diagnosed with PPMS, which is primary progressive multiple sclerosis, and he then sought off out to Russia to receive a treatment which is not FDA approved, hence he having to travel to Russia for it, and it was a HSCT treatment. And this has really helped with his own condition there with the PPMS, which would have effectively seen him go into a wheelchair. But despite all this, cannabis has also been an incredible aid to Stephen in dealing with the symptoms of his own condition. Stephen has also set up a series of talks that took place there in November. The talks were called Medical Cannabis Demystified, and he'd done that in partnership with SSDP while being a student at DCU here in Ireland. He's hoping to continue these talks through the Medical Cannabis or the Irish Cannabis Clinic that he's intending to set up very soon. So guys, without further ado, I give you Stephen Garland. Stephen Garland, welcome along to Martin's World. It's an absolute pleasure to finally get you on the show after we've talked about it a couple of times. I first met yourself back in August, it was, at the Smoke Up event that I organised, a little protest there for cannabis legalisation. I think you just happened to find yourself in town and came across the event maybe. But it was a pleasure to meet you there and to get to know you. You're an event organizer who's run events, comedy-based events between Ireland and Spain, I believe. And you've a story that's to be told then around cannabis and its benefits too. So Stephen, welcome along. Thanks very much, and welcome to Martin's World.
Great, and it's a pleasure to be on it. The illustrious Martin's World. I'm a fan of the 420 News. Watch it about as many times as I can, but there's a lot of podcast kind of things to commit to.
Yeah.
But you're doing an excellent job. That's what I'm going to say, Martin, and well played. And so first things first. And the reason I sought you out, in the sense that when you ran that Smoke Up down in Cork, I used to live on the Mardyke, a long time ago, when Sir Henry's was rocking, and all of that time, and I was in Cork for that, and so it was like a reunion with myself and the Mardyke from a long time before. So I said, geez, I got to go to this, and I was wondering who would turn up there. Very curious I was, and to be honest, I was kind of a little bit disappointed. First of all, good job you'd done. There was a good crowd down there that day. I don't know, there was several hundred people all smoking up. But the demographic I couldn't get over, because I thought there'd be some heads, from, when Sir Henry's and all that stuff was rocking back in the late 80s, it would have been like early 90s, maybe 89. I watched the World Cup in Cork, the one that where Sheedy scored a goal against the English. So I watched that in Cork. So when was that? That was 1990, and so that was rocking with people. Cork was rocking with smokers and rocking with Sir Henry's and all of that thing. So I was quite surprised that there was none of my generation really there, and they were all but young people. But again, it reinforces just how many people are in this community, whether they're out. So maybe all my generation, I think you said it to me at the time, maybe all my generation have all had kids now, which basically they have. I'm quite exclusive in the fact that I just have good rhythm.
Yeah.
And I've managed to keep my I'm just we're a childless couple, let's say, myself and the wife, and so it was interesting just to see another generation of people that you had there.
Yeah.
So it just tells you the amount of people that are there. They're hidden away. Maybe my generation now have more to lose by coming out. If you know.
One of two things I'd say there was maybe the way in which I advertised it through the social media and stuff. Maybe that targets a particular age demographic, but also definitely that's that reason that you mentioned, that the fact that a lot of these people would have maybe outgrown that kind of that kind of behavior, I suppose, to speak what you were talking about, this Sir Henry's era, like that brings up a certain type of behavior, i.e. taking ecstasy and stuff like that. But I suppose when you do have kids, then you tend to leave that lifestyle behind because of not because of what it is. It's just the criminal aspect of it. You don't want to be a criminal. You don't want to be like breaking a law as such when you're raising kids. But yeah, it is a shame that a lot of these people leave that behind. But when they kind of come back to it, I know a couple of people who would have smoked back when they were in their early 20s kind of thing. They gave it up. They're now in their 50s, and they love to go to Amsterdam every once in a while, and they'll have a smoke over there, and they say that they can't wait for it to be legal here so they can enjoy it here, but they still won't enjoy it here because they have grandkids now, and their grandkids would judge them. Like, they still keep this stuff from their own grandkids, which is a big issue. There's like so many people out there hiding who they are and living in the shadows.
No, it's true, man, and I would be exactly of that generation. And I know the people, and I know that they've had kids, and I know that they're just because it's still illegal. This is we're talking about something that's 30 years ago, and that's how long that people have, and how many people were criminalized in that time. And I know many of them, Martin.
And you were one of them yourself, weren't you?
I was indeed.
30 years ago,
the first trip to Tipp, one of 27 people. I was the only one that got off. And compliments of the Cork DS. So I have a long history with Cork.
And when you mentioned trip to Tipp there, you mentioned this to me before, but I actually, it may be showing my age or whatever, I didn't even know that was a festival. I thought you were just on about a trip to Tipp that you took. But no, that's actually a music festival that was called Trip to Tipp. I didn't even know that. So when you were explaining it to me, I was just like, this fella was on a trip to Tipperary and he got pulled in by the cops. So I was like, all right, yeah, fair enough. But no, it was actually a music festival. Now it made a lot more sense afterwards. Right. So on the way up there, was it on the bus you got stopped? Was it?
No. I was living in up in Longford at the time, and we drove down to it, and literally it was the first. That was a big festival that just came out of the blue. Before that festival, you just had things like Slane. There were one-off gigs in Slane was the big thing, and there was no there wasn't that one, what they call the one that where all the kids go these days.
Electric Picnic.
Those Electric Picnic. That's kind of older, but what's the one that you don't have festivals? You didn't have festivals then.
Yeah.
You would have big gigs, and in maybe in Croke Park there'd be a gig or two, or in the RDS. Used to have big gigs and stuff like that. But there was this was a big thing that happened out of the blue. Yeah. The headliners were diabolical that first year. They were like Meatloaf, I think, were the biggest one. And then you did just a bunch of Irish stuff, Emotional Fish. Hot as Flowers were a big band at the time, and they played. So it's that kind of crap. You can look at Google Trip to Tipp, people, and you'll see what it was. But it's very, they're actually doing a classical version of it now. I think when 30 years later, they went back and started making gigs it's in Semple Stadium, the hallowed ground of hurling, of Munster hurling, and Michael, the infamous Michael Lowry, put that one together, and he made a few bob, I'm sure, which is his wont.
Yeah.
And anyways, it was but the horrible thing about it was it was brand new. And we drove down from Longford, and people came from all over the country. And it only ran for about, I think, 4 or 5 years. And then it actually moved to Cork. And it was in Cork Quay for the last year. some big bands played over the years, Prodigy, you name it, De La Soul. It was massive. It became the biggest. It was actually the biggest festival in Europe after Glastonbury for the 5
Cork when it
years.
came to Cork.
No, yeah, because Cork was the last one. But before it was 4 years in Tipp in Thurles, and then one in Cork, I think.
Boom.
So anyway, there were big gigs just, and then they would have laid the marker for festivals to come afterwards, you know. So I'm an event manager, so this is kind of it's interesting to see the evolution.
It was at the 1990 trip to Tipp that you said that you got was a hash that you got caught with a bit of hash by the cops.
A gram of hash. I was literally, so I would have been 18. Like literally just 18 and a month or something like that. The gig was in August. My birthday's in practically June, and so I was only 18 and 2 months. You're right at the start of your life if you want to look at it objectively. And they went and they did stop and search. There was the Cork DS were going through the campsites, and they were just stopping and searching. And I didn't have hash when we arrived there, but we seen a guy who was fixing the lighting rigs on the campsite, and he bit me off a notch, enough for 2 joints, and then I just threw I put one together, and then I put the other little blim, which was nothing, like less than a gram, a blim as we used to call it, and I feel like I'm telling old stories of the war. But yeah, so anyway, the thing was, it was 30 years ago, literally this week, you know. So I actually reminisced about it this week, because it was a massive there was like a beast from the east type winter happened that winter. I avoided the first couple of summonses. I was living in Northern Ireland by the time the summonses started to arrive, and like, so I was kind of just not paying any attention to them, and the old fella was kind of going, "What's this? What are you doing down in Thurles?" I was going, "Well, I don't know. That'll be a bit of hash." So anyway, so I just kind of, but they caught me, and I got the summons was served. And then, but all the other 26 cases had taken place, and all those people, all the 26 other dudes that were caught with whatever they were caught with, tiny grams, it didn't matter. That's what the lawyer told me at the time. Didn't matter what they had. He said, everybody was caught. This guy was putting them in jail. So every one of those 26 other people that year, and then every year, and I know people every year that got caught in Thurles and at festivals. For about, when I would have been living in Ireland and young and at that, you know, around that scene, I know how many people that got banged up and got criminalized. The thing is that they were criminalized.
Yeah, they were all criminalized.
Yeah, and it comes back to haunt you. And look, I got a courthouse poor box donation by a judge that was absolutely mad at the time. He was talking about, there's a hate underworld in this country, and they're not going to come down to my town, Thurles, and smoke all over the place, when that festival was nothing full of drinking, and they don't, like, there was a million, you'd like to think that it was light years away from where we are now, but 30 years later, it's as that's how prohibition, how strong it has been for 30 years, that there's still these kinds of attitudes, and you're still likely to end up in front of a judge who'll have no real sense of what, and they're appearing the cases all the time. You're reporting them on them all the time in your 420 news. It's shocking. Behind every one of the stories, man, there's somebody getting criminalized, and that's the horrible thing. And I mean, you literally, there was one in Longford a week. A guy in Ballymahan with 2 plants. It's all this thing about people getting caught with 1 plant, 2 plants, and you go, for God's sake. And so since then, then I came to whatever age, and I said, I'm getting out, man. And so I headed to, I was in London for a good few years, but not 2 or 3 years. And Northern Ireland for a while. Northern Ireland was an awful lot freer society. It felt like it, at least, because the police had bigger issues pre-peace process. they had bigger issues to worry about than a bunch of student-looking heads smoking joints. They really did, when you're going around with a target on your back.
Yeah.
And so it was a pretty free place. Port Stewart and Port Rush has to be the mushroom capital of Ireland, and a lot of fun up there for a couple of years. And
Nice.
then I went to Amsterdam. I said I'm going to Europe, and it had to be Holland.
Yeah.
Obviously for the gastronomy.
How long did you get to spend in Holland?
The first time I went, I've been in Holland 2 times. So the first time I went was I went to, God, I have to remember this. Was back in. I went to Maastricht, and which is in the south of Holland, and that's a significant thing in terms of the cannabis world, because Maastricht is kind of sandwiched. It's in a region called Limburg, it's like that little nipple on the bottom of Holland. So literally, you have Belgium will be part of the town. It's a city, small little city, and part of the city will have Belgium, and you're only the border of German border is just just there. Yeah. And I loved it, man. You could drive to Amsterdam in 2.5 hours. You could drive to Paris in 4 hours. You could stick a pin in the map and drive there. Within 4 hours, you'd be anywhere in Europe. So I've been a Europhile ever since that time. And but what that also meant was that everybody came to Maastricht to buy weed, because the only place that you could buy hash legally for a huge part of Europe. I mean, how many millions of people? And Maastricht used to have some of the greatest. People always think about Amsterdam when they think about coffee shops, but some of Holland's greatest coffee shops were in Maastricht. They used to have a barge called the Mississippi, which was an incredible thing. It was like Maas comes from a river called the Maas, which has just got these massive Polish barges that go up and down the river, and they're massive. And so one of them was known as the Mississippi, and you're talking like like a coal barge. I don't know if you know how big they are. They're massive. Yeah. And you would have down in the hold. It was really funny because you would have you're below the water mark. You don't really realize that because you're inside this metal box essentially. And there's just three-piece suites going the whole length of it with a coffee. And it's really significant now because it made such an impression on me that you had in between the 3-piece suites, you had a coffee table and and there would always be a big board, like a big massive board, and a big knife stuck in the board. So you'd have smokers would come in, sit down at their 3-piece suite, and have a chopping board that they could chop up on. And so they came you'd have everybody there from all over Europe. They're after driving, and I think it was 24 hours. I don't remember it not being in there, you know what I mean, by closing time or anything like that. But you'd have people there from France. They've all driven from everywhere, to go up to Maastricht for a smoke. So that made a big impression on me, and I just loved the freedom of Holland at the time, coming from Ireland, because of all what we were talking about there before. I was coming from that total repression situation, and going to Holland at the time, you could, buy mushrooms in the shop, and there was coffee shops and all of that kind of madness.
Lovely, yeah. And somewhere along the way for yourself then, Stephen, you had issues arise with the PPMS, I believe. And that kind of added then to the journey and brought you to Russia and stuff like that. But afterwards, after you've kind of come full circle on there, I don't know if you want to go into the Russia part of your story, but afterwards you found yourself kind of having to travel between Ireland and Spain, because of the differences there in terms of access to cannabis for the symptoms of that condition, which you kind of fell down with afterwards. So maybe if we could pick up there, if you could fill people in a little bit about your own condition, and as much as you want to say then about your own journeys with it.
Sure. So what I got I was living in Brazil at the time, so went out to Brazil when at the last recession, and so everything was happening. Everything good in the world was happening in Brazil, a World Cup, and Olympics, and all of that. My wife is an event manager. She's a Brazilian event manager. And so we had to go to Brazil. And so out there, my health started to go downhill. And what I have, the PP is primary progressive, MS is multiple sclerosis. And the thing about primary progressive is it's the I jokingly call it the jackpot of MS, because you don't really know it's coming. It's a real slow burner, and you're going downhill very slowly, and for a long time you're wondering what the hell is wrong with you. And every now and again you'll have symptoms of whatever, but it used to always happen with me. I'm a promoter, and I would still, in all this time, I would still be running. I run Barcelona. I own Barcelona Comedy Festival and a couple of things like that. And I would always be going back to Barcelona, and I'd run comedy events in Barcelona. And then, funny enough, after 9 hours drinking and messing, and about 5 o'clock in the morning, I would have a fall, which you would technically be due on, but there were kind of falls that were stranger than normal, but it wasn't just a case of falling over. It was like a case of falling over and not being able to pick myself up in terms of no power. And so then that became, right, okay, I got to see what it is. And MRIs, long story short, a lot of searching, and in Brazil, and then ultimately back to Ireland, and I get an MRI that shows I've got issues in my brain, and but then you have to get you get an MRI. MRIs is like it's technically just an X-ray of your brain and your spine and whatever. So you'll get your MRI, but you need a neurologist to read it. So a neurologist appointment in Ireland takes about, at the minimum you can expect is 4 or 5 months. So I was technically still living in Brazil essentially, and had come back, and now I'm in this situation where I've got a health issue. So anyway, I end up I wasn't going to wait 4 months, 5 months for or not. You don't even have a date. You're just kind of going, oh yeah, it's in the it's in the post. Yeah. It will come, and this is a private appointment, not even public. So in the end, because of my links I still had strong links to Barcelona. I go back to Barcelona, and I wrangle my way into an appointment with one of a leading MS neurologist, and they have a huge center in Barcelona called MCAP, and I finally got diagnosed there in 2016. Okay, and a bit of a blow, and but to be honest, I was been that long looking. It had consumed 2-3 years of life, and looking for what the hell is wrong with you. And then because I wasn't taking any drugs, I didn't feel that kind of bad, and that was why it was a mystery. And it was on and on. It's a regular thing, though, this searching for diagnosis for a lot of people. So in the end, I've got my diagnosis, and then it comes with a no treatment, no cure badge, and it also comes with it's got an MO, a modus operandi, where you're going to go from one walking stick to 2 walking sticks to a rollator. It's got that really. The only way is down, baby. And so I said I didn't like the sound of that, and so I got busy, and I got very fortuitously. People got to know I'm from Granard in Longford, which is very close to Cavan. And people got to know, and next thing a guy turned up he's actually from Casablanca, and he was fundraising to go to Moscow, and so I got in touch with him and found out what he was doing, and it was this thing HSCT, which is still a non-FDA approved treatment, and that it's like a stem cell therapy, and so in the end, then it became a thing. Okay, I got to do this. So it became a real self-medical advocacy story, and that's really what drives me now. And I'm in the process of setting up the Irish Canna Clinic, which is going to be a patient-led clinic, which is based on this kind of thing of if you have the information, you can we're living in the internet age and a huge information age. So you can find out if you're pointed in the right directions and given the right things. Then I know it for myself. I am not in a wheelchair because I got up off my ass, and if I'd listened to doctors, I'd be in a wheelchair. And literally now, I'm now 3 years post transplant. So I ended up going to Russia, and I've essentially stopped. I still have PPMS. I still walk with a stick. Still have a few symptoms. And in all of this moments, because I was always an experienced cannabis user, and I've spent so much time in Barcelona, and I know the whole Barcelona scene, that I've always been medicating for whatever. I don't even see it as, I've never seen it as medicine. It's just, but then when you get a reason to take it because you got nerve pain and because you got different realities that comes with a condition, then it suddenly gets an extra adjective. It gets medical. It becomes medical cannabis.
Yeah.
And but it's totally valid for.
And for yourself, when with your own symptoms, it's pain that you would be suffering with, then the kind of pain within the nerves. So how does cannabis work for yourself? Then I'd assume you're inhaling it, smoking it, or using a vaporizer. Is that your vaporizer I seen in your hands a couple of minutes ago? Is that your packs?
Max 3, which I'm not completely happy with, but this comes compliments of the what did they call themselves? The Cannabis Museum on Capel Street. I won this at a raffle of Johnny Keenan's Bill Hicks night. He has a Bill Hicks night on February on commemorating Bill Hicks' death. So I was at that, and I won this. At least I'm going to claim I won it for best performance. I was performing on the night.
Yeah, that's the job. I actually have one here that I won as well recently. It's I won this at a Graham organised medical cannabis conference above in Smock Alley, but it has Tilray there labelled at the bottom of it. But Tilray sponsored. It's a Da Vinci accent, but a decent enough old vaporizer. What else do I have? I have another one here as well. I've got the Irish made one, the Iolite. She's made in Ireland. This one works on butane. It's a really handy one, actually. It runs on butane. Really good.
And it's made in Ireland.
And it's made in Ireland, above in County Meath.
Oh,
yeah, I don't know if they're still making it in Ireland, but they were. It's on this and all. It says it on here. Made in Ireland.
There's a whole industry missing when you make this, when you have prohibition. There's a whole industry for everybody that can be part of it. And Ireland is great at entrepreneurial. I just came out of the Innovation Academy in UCD, and it's full of, we have a real entrepreneurial spirit in Ireland,
Yeah, and there's major potential there for it, all right.
Oh yeah, people need to be let loose on this cannabis industry, and get past this prohibition, nonsense. So anyway, where was I?
You're grand.
The reason for the vape, Martin, that's an important thing, because the thing about MS is that the worst thing you can do once you start getting MS, or when you start living the sin, it's smoking tobacco is the worst thing you can do. So smoking tobacco, it would have me on the floor in a flash, and I can vape. So that's why I'm vaping. Why combust when you can convect, baby?
So would that be the same for even a bong hit if there was no tobacco within there? Would that produce the same effect?
The problem is tobacco.
The only problem is tobacco. That's very interesting. All right. Yeah, I tried to break it down before looking at tobacco smoke specifically and cannabis smoke specifically, and it seems like there's more beneficial compounds, obviously, as we would know, within the cannabis smoke. But when we look at tobacco smoke, there's much more harmful compounds being produced in there because of the added chemicals that are allowed being added into tobacco afterwards. Things like that are added in just to help with enhance the burning qualities of the tobacco. Like you notice if you had a rolled up blunt, let's say, with no tobacco in there, You take a puff, you put it down for a second, and within that second it will go out. You'll have to light it up again. It's kind of annoying actually. But the tobacco industry add a chemical in, so your cigarette will never go out. Like if you notice the person who might smoke a cigarette, take a few puffs, put it down in an ashtray, and they might forget it for 5 minutes, they'll come back to a pile of ash because the cigarette will just keep burning, and that's because of a chemical added in there afterwards to enhance the.
And that was my problem, and that's the problem with MS and MS and different. And I imagine it's not just MS because they're toxins, man. Smoking is like the worst thing possible. Interesting little anecdote for you. I had Howard Marks, the legendary Mr. Nice. I'm a comedy promoter as well, you know. So in 2011 and 2012, I had Howard Marks in Barcelona, and Howard would always, it was on his rider even, you know, and what do you call that tobacco with the Indian on it?
Yeah, I know the one you're on about. Jeez, I can't remember.
Natural tobacco.
American Spirit.
There you go, yeah. So Howard Marks, the late Howard Marks, beautiful guy, and so he was on his rider a couple of packs of American Spirit, and not much else. In fairness to the dude, you know.
Yeah. We got him over to the Cork actually to do a few talks, and we had to source him an ounce of hash as part of the deal getting him over here. Great crack having Howard Marks in town.
He's and I had him to Spain twice. And in 2011 was an interesting one because after the show, we went. It was on the weekend of Spanibus. Spanibus is the big huge fair that's been like when it goes ahead again. I think they're going to have to get it on in October this year, but it'll be the 17th edition, so it's been around for quite a while, you know.
Yeah.
And in 2011. I had Howard over, and after an amazing show, he was just after getting the Mr. Nice book out, and so it was a brand new show, and it was all very exciting. We sold out, and then afterwards we went down to. I didn't believe that there was cannabis clubs. I didn't know there to be cannabis clubs in the city, but this was one of the first ones, and it was we were having the inauguration, the first night, opening night. And it was very funny because the entirety of all the industry was in one room, and I was there with myself and Howard and a friend that was helping me with the gig, and we were just and Shanti Baba was there. There's another legend of the cannabis industry, right. And but it was an amazing thing to be asked because, to be honest, I was never so deep into the plant. I enjoyed it, man, you know, and so literally it was like that. But everywhere you turned, if you turned left or right in this room, you know, that guy on your left writes for High Times. This guy on your right is La Dolce Vita from Italy. You know, they were all industry, and they're all seed men. And at the time, I remember sitting looking at a screen that had close-ups of trichomes and all that thing, and all plants and buds. And I was watching screens with Shanti Baba, and Shanti's there, and he's going, and he's kind of explaining to me that this has gone very, very far now, you know. And this is back in 2011, so that's 9-10 years ago. And at that time, he was just kind of saying to me, and Shanti Baba would be 35 years working around medical cannabis, and so he's right, one of the originators. And so he's there looking in 2011. He's going to me. He said, "There's real stuff going on here with cancer, and there's real stuff going on with all these different illnesses, and it's all real, and it's just all barriers." So this was, to my impression on the night, was it was the very first club in Barcelona. I don't think it actually was. I think there was one before it, but it was an amazing club. It was like downstairs. Downstairs were all the plants. Mm-hmm. So all the growing it's like an underground kind of subterranean club, and so all the plants were being grown downstairs, and then upstairs was the club, and we were there, and I was kind of chaperone of Mr. Nice, who was now becoming who they made socio number 1. So I joined as well. I think I was socio number 6. Which was very proud of for the night.
Nice. One more and you could have been number 007.
a great guy, very sad, because I brought him back the following year, and we did 2 shows, one in Madrid, Barcelona, and then on the following night. So now we're getting up to about late 2012, and kind of little did we know that we were the last time we kind of met with him, and we like, because I had a good relationship with Howard, and that we were both incubating diseases, and because I didn't know my MS was my PPMS was just beginning to develop, and of course Howard, when cancers were beginning to be, we were kind of it's ironic, you know.
Yeah. He's achieved a lot, though, in fairness to himself, and he's wrote those books and stories. He's an amazing storyteller, in fairness, Howard Marks. But on yourself, I suppose, how do you find it that you're, when in Ireland, when you're back home, it's difficult to get access to the medicines that you can get when you're over working in Spain, when you find yourself over there at those times. What's that like? It must be really frustrating.
Totally, and it's you're criminalized. I mean, that's at the end of the day. Nobody wants to be. Look at, man, I want to travel. I want to do things, and I don't want a criminal record, and I don't want. But why should I be criminalized? I'm a patient. I'm now literally, and I'm absolutely. I fit one of you. If you look at the MCAP, that program in Ireland, I fit one of the things.
Multiple sclerosis.
To finish the MS thing, like a lot of the MS solution, the cannabis solution for MS people, a lot of the time it's spasticity, and I'm not one of those cases because, well, I just don't have spasticity. I have nerve pain, and but it's excruciating when it kicks in, and thankfully I don't have really bad spasticity, but I have it's there. But at the end of the day, I'm entitled according to the program and according to Irish law, I'm entitled to it. But I'm not, because I'm also a patient of the Mater Hospital in Dublin. The Mater Hospital, I've asked for, this is now 3-4 years, and I'm getting fed up with it, to the point where I stopped thinking about it, because why would you, I don't have the energy to be chasing this thing all the time. And Kenny Tynan always kind of saying, we're busy trying to be sick, and so, but I've written to everybody, Donnelly, Harris before him, all through all the ministers, all as they go. I'm not writing anymore. I decided a long time ago, and but basically, the Mater Hospital has a policy of not supporting applications for this program. So what does that mean?
How many allowed to have a policy to deny patients medicine, and effective on it? That it's questionable. Like, how they get away with this sort of thing.
Yeah, is there not kind of a legal obligation there, or what you're a health provider, and why would you not? I mean, and my neurologist is also, and I'm fed up with him, to be honest. And
that's not the only hospital. I've seen comments. You mentioned this on your Facebook post before, and there was someone else mentioned that St. Vincent's Hospital also has a policy where their consultants are not allowed to apply for the cannabis medicine for the patients within the hospital. That's
as a matter of policy.
As a matter
of policy. So, I mean, how can that be? So how can you make decisions on a legislative level that we're going to? I mean, for politicians, it's really what drives the kind of medical cannabis thing is the kids, the epileptic kids, because that's the real heartstring puller. And I remember, I forget who it was, but I think it was Gino, and it wasn't Gino, but somebody went into the Dáil, I'll never forget, and was going, what have we got to do? We've got to put an epileptic kid on the Dáil bench, on a bench in the Dáil. Do we have to have a kid having a fit before and people will pay attention here?
Yeah.
I mean, it's that shocking. And so all they did was they just ticked the box, and there's no real choice on the there's no. I mean,
And it seems like they tried to silence a few key campaigners who were making a lot of noise and were very much a thorn in the side of the politicians. One everyone would know of would be Veratumi.
Of
And
course.
I'd say that they were really hoping that once Eva got access to that medicine, that her mother Vera would kind of just go away and stop annoying him. But thankfully she hasn't, because the whole system is a joke. You mentioned the MCAP, which is the Medicinal Cannabis Access Program. There's still nobody after getting access to cannabis through that yet to date. Despite the fact, even yourself, like, you're being excluded on it because your hospital has a policy against it, despite the fact that your condition is listed as one of the three conditions.
Yeah.
Who should be getting access to it? I just think it's criminal, really, at this stage.
Well,
So
I think maybe it is, because is it not? If it's legislatively said that I'm entitled to this,
mhm.
and then and I mean, you're not even given options of Sativix. Sativix hasn't even got into Ireland as far as I can see,
No,
has it?
no. It's in Ireland, but you can't be prescribed it, and the cost is prohibitive.
Exactly.
Yeah, no,
And
it's a big issue.
I think cost is possibly a lot to do with avoidance going on, because they're afraid of their lives, that this will somehow become like people will have to get this on medical cards, and then it opens up a
Yeah.
Pandora's box of costs. And even though it's the most highly funded broken health system in the world, I think it's literally the most highly funded. And I've
Yeah.
been through a few health systems, dude, and Ireland is shocking.
Yeah,
And
I just don't understand how they might lose money, because when you look at it, when some of the kids got access to the cannabis medicines, it reduced their hospital visits by a couple of 1,000% in some cases. Like, I don't think Ava has had to visit the hospital anywhere near as much as what she would have before she got access to cannabis medicines. Even a story I covered earlier in the 420 news, which was of a girl in England. Geez, what was her name now? I'm going to forget her name. I have it here in front of me. 1 second now. Ali, geez,
Ali, yeah.
is it Ali? Yeah, something along those lines. Anyway, geez, where is that? Oh yeah, here she is. Indy Rose, actually, not Ali, Indy. Indy Rose was her name. And she went from having 75 seizures a day to having 3 or 4 in a month. Like, you tell me that the hospital, that the NHS isn't saving money over there in England, now with the reduced reliance on the ambulance services, say that these parents would have once relied on to get them to hospital when she was having one of these really bad seizures. Like, it's crazy, the amount of money that
But
could be saved.
the finances of medical systems and how medical is operated is not really done in that way. It's like the thing that I did to stop my PPMS, and I literally have done. I should, like I said, it's a definitive thing for me to say that I would be in a wheelchair if I had listened to the doctors, and because there's no drug to prescribe for PPMS. There's only one drug in the whole world called okra, which has such poor efficacy that it's a joke. It's like 20% of people respond, and of those 20% that respond, they only have their symptoms reduced by 20%. So it's like 20% of 20%. Give me a break. It's zero. It's zero efficacy. And so, but okra costs, I think, about 100 grand a year if you're on it. I don't know who's on it. I don't know who's getting paid to be on it. But everybody else, like PPMS is 15% of the MS population. The rest of the population, 85% of the population, are on they're on different drugs, tons of drugs,
Yeah.
and they're like but generally they're all you know them, they're getting on with life, but they have to inject every other day. People they
Just
don't
guinea
know
pigs
they
at
don't
once
know
a week
that they're
for everybody.
injecting. They're doing it privately at home,
Yeah.
and but that's how they kind of keep their symptoms suppressed. But if they went and did HSCT, which many people I tell every person I meet, if they're at a certain stage of their disease, get it stopped, before you go progressive, and then so it cost me 65 grand to do this thing that I did in Russia, and that's literally one year of drugs. Do you know what I mean? For all these people who are on these, they want you sick, and they want you just on it all the time. And that's my impression. You can look at it from a bit of a kind of pharma conspiracy, but I don't really look at it from a conspiracy. It's to have a place. Pharma has a place, but it only has a place. It doesn't have a monopoly, and that's the difference and the issue with all of these things.
Yeah. At the moment, for yourself, how much cannabis do you require, I suppose, for your to keep you, I suppose, in a quality of life that you're happy with?
Yeah, not much, not much at all. I mean, and literally, a friend sent me a bag of CBG this week. He's got to grow, and so my packs. I'll have the CBG. I find that CBD never personally. Look, everything is personal. It's very complex, this cannabis treatment for individuals. And so like everybody that lots of people get results from CBD. I never have done. CBG, I can't get over it. It's actually quite good. I can really see its benefits for anxiety. I can say, but it's illegal. I believe it's illegal. CBD flower?
CBG flowers would be illegal here in Ireland anyway, because it's a cannabis flower.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So that's and that's absurd. I mean, that's not even psychoactive. It's like a CBD, and but you know, there's so much in this plant, and we're only kind of scratching the surface of it. So, but anyway, I would have a vape with high THC, and I just before bed, you know, I don't. You know,
yeah.
I still like to get high. I medicate to get pain free, and that's predominantly, and sleep well.
And when your friend is not sending you the CBG, how much on average would your cannabis be costing you, roughly, say, per gram?
One of I use the cartridges for for THC cartridges. They're only 40 euros, 50
Nice.
euros. I'd one of them would do me a month, and I could subsidize that with a bit of flour. You know what I mean?
Yeah, one of those would do you a month. Wow.
You would, yeah.
Oh, that's
what I mean? 50 euros a month, and then just if I want some. But I'm liking this combination that I've found now with CBG, and this this vape because I can put flour into it, so I can mix the flour. I can mix the flours. So if the CBG, if I want a bit more to knock myself out, I can stick a bit of regular flour in with the CBG, and that's what it's about. It's about finding the sweet spots. It's about finding what works for you, and that's kind of that's all you can do, and that's all. You know, it's a learning curve.
Yeah, exactly. Is there any particular strain or kind of strains that you find to be more beneficial for yourself, or is there any that you find to be actually maybe detrimental or maybe exacerbate your condition? Would you
on the vape pens? I have been doing some they're proper high concentrates. I mean, they're like 79, they're practically 80% THC. So in terms of, sometimes I feel they're a bit too heavy, and but there's a couple I like. Currently I've got a wedding cake. I don't know if you know a wedding cake.
Yeah, I've heard of wedding cake. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a wedding cake, but there's a blueberry one that's only about 60% THC, and to be honest, I really like that. And it's got a nice flavor to it, and because again, you're like the terpenes, but I really value the terpenes. Like I would literally like to sniff away. Like this PAX 3 is it's great because it's my wife does no drug. You know, she has no interest in smoking or never smoked in her life, never did anything, and so this is a kind of very clean way of me consuming my medicine.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, you can still get you get a good whack of the terpenes out of this because there's flour in it, you know.
And Tim, have you never tried to get your wife to sit down and have a puff with you?
Not a hope, you know.
I've had some funny experiences doing that here at home.
Yeah.
I have a partner who doesn't smoke as well, and yeah, it can be funny then when they do smoke.
Right. Yeah, look at it.
Her first time was in Amsterdam, which was probably a bit in the deep end.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's a lot of the senses are getting hit in Amsterdam, you know.
Oh, big time, big time. On the Spanish scene and stuff, actually, what are the clubs like that you've visited? Are they very welcoming? You know, are some claims? I've read one article that tried to demonize the whole lot of them as being money laundering places for the Russian mafias and stuff like that. But what's been your own experience of the clubs and the scene?
Well, look at it. It is a you don't deny what's there, you know, and there is certainly the clubs are basically, to understand them legally, they're not for profit clubs.
Yeah.
That are based. They're like a growers collective. That's what they are, kind of essentially and legally. And so, but the not for profit is the really critical thing. I mean, they tax all the people who work inside them, the bud tenders. Many of them have bars and different things. So all the people who work in it are got proper work contracts, are paying tax, and all of the and they are paying tax. They pay 21% tax, which is what you pay for everything in this country. If you want to buy a ticket to go to one of my gigs, there's 21% VAT on it. So they have it kind of, they're being taxed to a level, and they are being put in jail. So the real critical thing is the fact that they have to be not for profit. And now, I mean, sometimes you've got ones like I'm a member of 2 clubs. I'm a member of, like, I think 4 or 5. You can just become members. It depends on, they all have different conditions on how you can join them, and the different expenses and things like that. Right. And so, I mean, there are small clubs where literally you could be on a street, just a tiny, like a converted old flat, but it's just a small group, a small collective, and they're lovely, you know, that 10, 12 people can get to pull themselves together, and they invite friends. Everybody should be invited in. Yeah. You can't take your what you buy in there, you can't bring outside. It's illegal once you have it outside. And so everything is kind of, legally the clubs are designed on not they allow it to happen, but everything is built around not allowing it to go out, you know, to go outside and become part of an illegal trade. And so they're entirely designed wonderfully, and they're beautiful. Some of them are beautiful, because I lived in Amsterdam back in the day. Yeah. Even though Amsterdam's gone the other way now, man. Amsterdam's mayor is kind of he's really pulling back Amsterdam coffee shops, and there's going to, tourists are being banned and all that kind of thing. Yeah. And because I have friends who still run clubs in Maastricht and things, and it's all really, really changed in Holland. All the clubs, all that big Mississippi coffee shop, they're all gone, you know. They cleaned up Maastricht, and they closed. I think they closed maybe, like, because the city, there was really, really a lot. Like I said, they're coming from all over Europe to buy. So they closed down, I don't know how many hundreds coffee shops. My friend, Club 69, there was 3 or 4 Irish shops in Maastricht that are still there. Heaven 69, Paddy, check him out. Right. And Wally ran this Club 69, and so there's the Irish in Maastricht always had a strong connection to the coffee shops. Nice. Know that. Yeah. Yeah. So,
how would you say between the two, if you were to pick in the morning to go to Amsterdam or to, say, Barcelona?
Right. Okay. That's where I was going. Yeah. So there's the difference in them. So back in the day, I remember my favorite clubs are places like the Greenhouse Effect, Hill Street Blues, all the ones you could booze in, and there wasn't many clubs or coffee shops that you could also drink in, and so that's what's ended. I think they've really clamped down on mixing drink and weed. And no, but Barcelona has, because it's made a kind of quantum leap, because Barcelona has had, Amsterdam's been there for 30 years, and then Barcelona has arrived in 2010, like that kind of moment when I had Howard here, like 2011, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they're all very swish, man. And Barcelona, has, I don't know if you've been to Barcelona lately, but I mean, there's no shitty accommodation. When I came here in 2002, man, the Raval and there was lots of areas were pretty bad, Yeah. But now everything in Barcelona, there's not much that's not pretty swish, and the same is reflected in the clubs. I'm a member of HQ. Enrique Granadas is one that a lot of the foreigners would kind of come in contact with. Nice. And it's super swish, but it's run by Russians. He's a Russian owner, but he's everything's on a credit card in there. It seems perfect. The other one, Rincon del Maria, RDM, is beautiful one as well. Huge, amazing place to watch the matches, the Barca matches. We've got 3 massive TVs. Nice. They're swish, you know what I mean? They're really, really comfortable, and RDM, you can even bring in your pizza. You can bring in
outside food. They not serve their own food in there, or?
No, they don't, but they allow you to bring them in. But they're very cool. Do you know what I mean? They're very people are very relaxed. Barcelona's
I've heard that in some of the stores. I suppose all of them have their own rules. But is it a rule across the board that when you go into a cannabis cafe or club, whatever wording you want to use, that you have to stay there for 30 minutes? You can't leave for like 30 minutes or something like that?
Barcelona has such huge tourism. I mean, now this is bizarre. What's happening now with COVID is bizarre. But there's 18 million people come to Barcelona. Everybody in Ireland has been to Barcelona at this stage several times. And there's just traffic going over and back. So the thing is that they have to, in terms of the clubs, they've had to manage the city has had to manage the clubs attracting the tourism. Okay. And it's not. So they're not technically open to tourists.
Yeah, that's right.
Some of them, let's say, are more open than others, and that's how they are. And so you'll come and you'll kind of that club is cool and they won't charge you, and and then the other ones. But generally, everybody, the rule is everybody has to be a member, and then so you have to pay a membership fee, and then you have to be on site buying or smoking, consuming. You have to be a member.
But by being a member, what you're actually doing is you're giving them the right to grow cannabis plants for you and process it for you, and they'll hold the cannabis for you, and you pay then a fee which would cover all of the expenses to carry out that whole operation. Like that's the model in which they're operating over there, and it's supposed to be not for profit, but I'd imagine there's probably a lot of money going into pockets. For sure.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, that's where there will be criminal elements, because it's perfect for laundering, and they're pretty easy to set up, is my impression. Yeah. And because there's 300 clubs, I think, across Spain, but Catalonia has
about that, I'd say, alone, probably. Yeah. I heard Barcelona has like 200 or 300 clubs. Like, it was like explosion of them there at one stage. But
they're closing them down as well, And, but like I said, this comes from the culture. There's two things here, right? So Spain has an inherent culture and respect for for associations, which is, to me, in the Irish context, the thing that it's what it is cooperatives. So Barca Football Club is technically an association. So everybody votes every year for who's going to be president of the club. It's different than other kinds of clubs. It's not Man City. It's not Liverpool. It's none of these. It's operated as an association, and where every single everybody is a socio, and everybody. So they have this massive culture. If you want to, you live in a street, and the street wants to have a festa major, as they call it, then we need to get a toilet. Then the street makes an association for the street, and then it can apply to the ayuntamiento and get a toilet and a portaloo or whatever. So it has a really strong culture of that. And then so having a growers association, there would be a ton of other plants associations, I'm sure. I don't know of any, but there would be. I'm sure there'd be a tomato association. I'm sure that there is. There's an olive association where they do things collectively. They're very good at that. I mean, it's quite this is quite a great town, Barcelona, for politics like anarchy. And in Ireland, they look at you like you've got 10 heads if you said I'm an anarchist. And but it's a real political persuasion in a town like Barcelona, and they're quite, these are, they've also had a very strong right to privacy. So that's another fundamental that when they're fighting back in the 70s, they've always been very pro-grow. And so you can have so everybody can grow 4 plants, at least, I think. So they're the basis of, and then you make a club, but it's in a gray area. And it's not that cannabis has been made legal, and everybody's kind of going, when is that going to happen, or when are you going to sort it out?
Yeah, it's a big issue over there. Even a medical cannabis being produced in Spain is not being provided to the patients in Spain. Patients in Spain are getting it through the clubs and associations. They're not actually getting it through the pharmacies and things like that as they should be, which is unfortunate. But back to yourself, I suppose, and you're, as we were saying earlier, part of your career was being an event organizer, but you're now utilising those skills in organising. You've organised a series of talks already that took place over the course of November, December, with some activists from Ireland. And the theme of the talk was looking at medical cannabis and access to it in Ireland. But you're relaunching those talks now again, starting on, is it February 3rd, Wednesday week?
There you go, with your good self, Martin.
Happy days.
No, they went really well until we had a couple of, we had a Zoom bomb, which is a thing. Apparently, I didn't know. Yeah. And I think it was just because I had 2 Cork lads it was the first show where I had 2 Cork lads on. But I know, but they were really good. And really the motivation was, I was a student for the first time in, 100 years. And so I was in UCD doing that course. And so I said, okay, while I'm here, because what you have to, when you are a student of the college, then it gives you kind of allowances to kind of or gives you leverage with the students' union and stuff like that. So what I wanted to do was, because I look at what's happening in Ireland, and it's difficult for all you guys, the activists that are there trying to. There's too many disparate kind of groups. That's how it struck me. And ultimately, you have things. There is momentum. There's momentum in the world. There's momentum today with Biden and Harris getting in the White House, and there's momentum happening all the time. And so the thing is that it's not a question it's no longer a question of if, it's now a question of when. And but I don't think it mightn't be for 2-3 years, but there can be pressure continuously applied, and that's what needs to happen before you get people en masse behind you. So I thought then I met the people from the SSDP, the Students for Sensible Drug Policy, and I thought, well, this is your mandate. This is what you're supposed to be doing, and they're quite cool. The European girl Roisin and another guy Ullen, and between them, that was the idea initially behind the talks, was that you would that we could kind of create a momentum. There's a lot of people within these students are a big mass of people, and if you want to have a movement, you need numbers. And so that's what I think, that there's numbers. They all vote, and you look at what happened in the election last year. 50% of the vote went left, and went, Sinn Féin and all of these parties, they're suddenly picking up all this youth vote. So there is a change, a demographic change that's happening in Ireland, and that's the future possibility for, I believe, for real cannabis activism. And so that was my motivation while I was inside the college, to be able to leverage that a bit and help it on a bit. I'm just a story. In the meantime, I'm just a story that I can bring to the table. I have a bit of experience. I've been around this thing like a long 30, 35 years, do you know what I mean, in terms of knowing what it's at and knowing what's going on in Europe. And I'm connected to a lot of, I know a lot of people and know how things are developing in different things. So I wanted to bring that bit of experience to the table, and so those talks are going. Yeah, so we're going to. We lost two. I have to talk with Vera Toomey and Deborah Downey. We were going to do a talk. We went to try to do condition by condition. We did MS with myself and Tom Kern. We did chronic pain with Alicia Maher and Miriam Haskins, and then we had cancer with Kenny Tynan. And so they were really good talks. They're going to be available online again. I've just finished editing. I had to clean up a little bit the edits around them, and I put a really nasty theme tune on them. But I'm not an editor, as you'll see. But in the next week or two, it'll be. And the whole idea is I'm moving very slowly to making this Irish Canna Clinic, which is I wouldn't say it's a passion as much as I feel it has to be done. In terms of instead of, I want to take the onus of patients retelling their story again and again, and instead kind of bring the patients out into a clinic and go, come with your question, rather than because people get fed up telling their story again and again. I'm currently writing my book, The Post Disposed. I'm 60,000 words in. Of about 60,000 words to go, so only like a lot of work to do on it. But the point is that the reason of this, I really want to get it done so that it's there, and I go, well, look, there's my story, because you don't want to keep telling. I never set out to be Mr. MS, Captain HSCT, or any of these things. Yeah. So the point is, but I toured the show. I made a one-man theatre show. And I toured it through. I went to the Edinburgh Fringe 2-3 times, and I took it out into London. I went back to Maastricht, went on a tour of my old haunts, and then down to Barcelona and Madrid. And so it worked really well. And so I want to get it into a novel, and then I can just go. Don't ask me. Go there. Buy a book.
Which is what you hope the medical cannabis clinic then will do for patients, that it can be kind of a place where patients can go, where they don't have to keep retelling their stories, where their stories will be hosted there for them, is it?
Yeah, or no, but the idea is that patients can come and they can ask within a kind of controlled environment, in the sense that they can make themselves known. So the idea will be to channel people through. If that's your condition, you go through this channel of information, and then we get the information and the studies and all the kind of so, because there's an awful lot of legal area to be, and that's kind of what I'm at the moment. We want to get this right and have it so that we know what we're claiming, and we want everything to be proper and above board.
Yeah, there are big issues currently today about giving people health advice about a particular product, especially if you are selling that product or producing that product. But just to even give them particular advice about plants, just in general, just about plants, that's seeming to be problematic now. Joanna, what's her name? Kate O'Connell, the absolute clown who was up in our government. She's a TD, a pharmacist nonetheless. But she drafted a bill there. I can't remember what the title of the bill was. But within it, like you can't even, you could be criminalized for just talking about cannabis and its ability to help with certain conditions now online. If this one was to get her way with her misinformation bill or whatever it was kind of called. But it was in specific the kind of some of the stuff that was being said online about cannabis. Now, Kate O'Connell, if you don't know, she is quoted in our dial as saying, what are we going to do when all these people start overdosing on CBD? Like, she thought people were going to die because CBD was being sold in Holland and Barrett and stuff like that. An absolute clown. And now she has a bill going out there to try to see that we can't really talk about this stuff anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's my, let's say, why we're being slow about coming. What I'm going to put, the website will be irishcannaclinic.ie, and the point is that when it's ready and when we are comfortable with all this legal crap that we have to deal with, and it's a moving feast all the time. So when we're kind of comfortable with how we're going to deliver this thing, but it'll be patient led, and it'll be my thing. My book is about self-medical advocacy. Nobody can tell me, Kate O'Connell, none of these gobshites, politicians, none of them can turn around and tell me different than my experience. Yeah. And my experience is that if I had listened to doctors from a Western medical perspective, that and I can quote people from Catalonia to New York, proper doctors. Nobody wanted me to do HSCT. And if I'd listened to them, I would be in a wheelchair. And there's lots of stories that turn up and talk to Joe. There's a guy, Kevin, he's in the hospice in Harold's Cross. He's an MS guy that's gone PPMS. He's a guy who checked himself in at 32 or 35 into the hospice in Harold's Cross. And he's in there, and he comes and talk to Joe, and he's going, Joe, it's typical talk to Joe, and but he's going, he's in a terrible situation because he's a young guy, but his parents were old. So what's he going to do? He's going. That's what happens with PPMS. Once you start to get to the end, and you fall apart in your 24-hour day care, and so this is the situation. I'm not a 24-hour day care situation. Because I self-medicate, because I followed my own journey, because I educated myself, and it's all out there. You can find this. So that's but that's the idea of my talks with the SSDP. While we have those students there, is to inspire them to go. Well, everybody, there's 9,000 people with MS, just MS. That's just one condition. But do you want to say? But then when you go into chronic pain, how many people with chronic pain? And they're there because of accidents that have gone badly wrong, and they're there because of surgeries that have gone wrong. Yeah. There's a ton of reasons why you can end up where you absolutely need to have medical cannabis. You have the guy on Talk to Joe again. You have the guy with the can of butter. Mm-hmm. How insane is that? That somebody grasses him up growing one plant, I think. Did you listen to that?
I did, yeah. I replayed it on the 420 News actually for all to hear it again, because it was a very powerful story. A man growing one plant, providing himself with almost a year's worth of cannabis butter for his chronic pain condition. I believe it was MS is what he had, and it was a crazy one.
What's he costing the state? What's he, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He's self-medicating, not costing anybody. They took the plant off him that he's saying, this could have given me a year's medication, and you're taking that. And it's not about the plant, it's not about the value of anything. The value of it is the fact that he's pain free for a year. Yeah. So this is what's all wrong, man.
Yeah, definitely.
And we know it. We could end up preaching to the choir and in our own echo chamber. But that's what we have to get out of it, and that's what these talks that we're doing, to go back to what the beginning of this conversation is, that's what this is about. It's to get it out into young people and go, look at, man. I had a guy listen to this one, another tiny anecdote, but a friend, and she had another friend, a friend of hers. She came to me, and he had MS, 32, parkour champion. So you have to be pretty fit to do parkour and to be a champion at parkour. And so the idea that, and she's asking me, she says, what can you recommend for him? And I'm going, you need to sort it out and stop it as quickly as possible. So he wouldn't get pointed in that direction if he didn't get it from somebody who's lived the experience. And that's all we have, in the absence of doctors who don't know jack shit. That's the other thing. Doctors don't know how the endocannabinoid system, and in fairness to them, they're still learning. There's still studies are still being developed.
Yeah, but sadly, it seems patients know more than their doctors. And when a patient arrives into the doctor's office and starts talking about a medication the doctor knows nothing about, and the patient knows all about it, then the doctor doesn't really want to engage in that conversation because they feel, I don't know, undermined by the patient who now knows more about medicine than the doctor, who should really know more than the patient about medicine. And it is a sad state of affairs that majority of doctors' offices across Ireland, you walk into them and you mention cannabis, and I don't know, eyes are going to glaze over, or defense barriers are going to come flying up straight away. I know people who use cannabis, and if they end up in hospital, they won't mention it because a doctor or a nurse might turn around and try to associate their reason for being in the hospital with the cannabis. You know, it was silly. Like I was going through some issues there myself there not too long ago, get my heart checked up and things, because there's a bit of a family history there with heart issues, so they were just being extra cautious with myself. But they brought up I mentioned the fact that I consume cannabis. I said, look, I don't smoke tobacco, and the doctor kind of caught wind of that. He's like, what do you mean you don't smoke tobacco? What do you smoke? And I was like, well, you asked now. I goes, I consume cannabis, and he was like, right. And he goes, and you don't smoke tobacco with it? And I was like, no. And he was like, yeah, no bother. He wasn't very judgmental at all about it at first. But then in comes another kind of a nurse, health assistant one afterwards, and then they were completely stigmatic towards it. Geez, do you think you might give that up at all? That can't be good for your heart. That's probably causing your issues, the low blood pressure or whatever. Like, I was just like, go away, just go away. Don't even go there, because there was no evidence to it. It was just in their own mind, cannabis is this bad thing. But it's really messed up when people like yourself and so many others out there who could really benefit from it, they can't even engage in an open and honest conversation with their doctors at all because of this ignorance that's out there.
I think that's going to be a very long and difficult journey to sort out. And to be honest, I think that's possibly the biggest barrier.
Definitely, well, hopefully things like your own talks and stuff like that will help with lowering that barrier. And where will people be able to find these talks? Last time you had them hosted up on stopmyppms.com.
Yeah, I'm going to go straight to this new web. I'm just going to have a holding site for www.Irish Canna Clinic, CANNA, Irish Canna Clinic.ie. And so
that's where people will find this series of talks, is it?
Yeah, no, but it's I want to get everything kind of channeled into that and get things beginning to build. But it'll just be a kind of a holding site for the talks.
Perfect,
essentially.
Yeah. But for the talks that are going to take place on the 3rd of February, where would people be able to find? Will it be on Facebook events, or whereabouts will
I'll be posting on my Facebook as well.
Your own Facebook.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So we'll share it out as widely as we can, and we'll go out through the SSDPs. It'll be in the colleges and all the kind of student union kind of. I'll press release it as much as I can.
Perfect.
And hopefully we get it.
SSDP are playing a role in this as well. So actually, you were saying the European arm of SSDP, is it? Yeah.
So they'll actually be I'll be using their Zoom account, and so absolutely. This is my motivation a little bit, I want to energize these people, and I want to activate them. Yeah. They are the big body of people, and like I said, the demographic is changing in Irish politics. We're done with these two parties forever. Yeah. And so the youth has to change it. And SSDP, whatever you believe about how successful they've been in the past or how unsuccessful they've been in the past, now is the time for these people to get energized again. We're very close to real momentum, and so I'm only just trying. That's my role here, and I don't really have any other great motivation. And while I'm doing that, as I'm going to be doing work to make the talks and all, that's just work. It's work and then so I said, okay, well, let's put it I was in that Innovation Academy, so I put the project that I did was this clinic, but I can see the real value in the clinic because, like I said, people come to me, man. It's like that kid at 32, he's in bed. His parkour went down in a flash. So how can you not tell people? How can you not seek to help people when I'm only not in a wheelchair because I read because somebody heard that I had MS, and then they read the Anglo-Celt. Man, I don't read the Anglo-Celt. And this dude, the first guy to go to Russia, turned up with an article. He was fundraising, and because his girlfriend lives in Cavan. Long story, but that's how somebody handed me the Anglo-Celt, and that's when I read it, and I went, right, got to talk to this dude, and he was great, and he'd done his homework, and he'd done his research, and the two of us hooked up, and he was in Russia, and I was on a waiting list for like a 2-year. It was a long time when I found that what I wanted to do. I wanted to do this HSCT, and I wanted the only way I could get to do it. There was a 3-year waiting list. So in the end, I had to wrangle through this other guy from Cavan to get up the Irish style. Go, oh look, when you're over there, will you ask him would he do me? And so I got bumped up the list, and I got the job done. And so this is I wouldn't have found it, man. Nobody would have told me. Not MS Ireland, not any of the kind of the people that you believe have your back, who are working for you. So this is the point. And if people can be absolutely, and I'm not, it's not if, and it's not anecdotal that there is real evidence now in on cannabis. But this is another thing that we have to be very careful how we tell that. And that's exactly like you said, because of the Kate O'Connells and these lunatics. And to be honest, they are the people on the wrong side of history, and they're the people who are the fringe. And the quicker they become further out on the fringe, and as loony Kate or whatever, but you know what I mean. Yeah. That's you'll see it that way. I've no doubt that in 10, 15 years' time, humanity will have got over this. Just like we've gotten over gay sex, just like we've gotten over all of these issues that are not issues anymore, and people get on with their lives, and that's what has to happen with cannabis. Right. And so I've no, if I can play a little part in that, that's all I'm seeking to do.
No, it seems like there's no small part that isn't important in this. Like every small part that a person plays in this movement, it's incredibly valuable, and I kind of learned that myself over time by just consistency really is what pays off. Just these small little efforts and consistency, and over time we will certainly win this because it's the right thing really. Like the prohibition, it's I was only saying a while ago, it has its expiry date, and but by people like yourself and myself doing our little efforts, we're helping it expire a little bit sooner than it needs to be. Is there anything else you'd like to add in, Stephen? Because I've exhausted my list of questions here for you. I'm just going to pack up another bowl of cannabis here now myself in the bong. But if you have anything else you want to have a chat about, or if you want to give any shout outs or anything like that, feel free there.
Not really, man. It's because I will have my book on the way. Because the more I say it publicly, the kind of more I'm more under pressure
to have to do it.
So so I've said it again. So that's my little bit of my pressure push for myself. Look, I have nothing really more to say except for it'll take a little. This thing it's like I said, like everybody's saying, it's not a matter of if anymore, it's a matter of when. But I still believe the when is a couple of years. Yeah. And because there's just too much to unravel in this society that has been stuck in prohibition for so long. I mean, even in Spain, disheartens me sometimes. It's like, because there's still raiding. There's still there's a club, like a cannabis club leader. They're all vetted. There's a bunch of conditions. People look online, they can find out very easily where you can find out about Barcelona cannabis clubs, but they are a perfect model. And, you know, somehow we're not going to, I think that it's operating in a gray area, but to be honest, the gray area, when I walk into my club, Rincon del Maria or any of the clubs, every time you're in there, you're meeting MS patients, you're meeting people that are in there to buy their thing. And it was made in the COVID, it's made an essential service. You know, it's like it's been an essential service all over the world, and here in Barcelona as well. They reopened
over in Canada where it's actually legal. I was talking to Dan Larson, and he was telling me that he runs an illegal cannabis dispensary there in Canada himself. But he was telling me in the legal dispensaries, if you were to go in there now yourself and say, I have MS and I need cannabis for whatever, they can't serve you. They'll actually have to ask you to leave the store at that point. Because you have to get your cannabis through the medical system. The recreational system is not allowed to sell you your medical cannabis, even though the cannabis will sort out your symptoms. And it'll be probably even better than what you get on the medical system, apparently. But even trying to get access over there through the medical system for patients, it's problematic. They can only get it through the post and things like that. There's a lot of issues there in Canada. But it is major. Like, imagine if in Spain, let's say, if they legalized, took the market, the clubs out of the grey area, but as part of that, it was like, but if anybody comes in and talks about chronic pain, you can't serve them because they have to go to the pharmacy, and we all know how problematic that is. Then as well over there, still, it's not sorted.
I think the culture is good in Spain, you know, because it does come from a kind of a sense that and that would be the basis of the right to grow the 4 plants. I mean, because at the end of the day, you know, there is people can learn how to grow, or people can get a friend to grow for them. And the fact is that they can at least grow, and that's about growing the plant. And so people can they'll find, you know, you'll find somebody. It's proven that I have a black tongue, and I'm still awaiting my first successful crop after 20 years. I go to the shop, you know.
Yeah, it's not there. The practice makes perfect anyway. The important thing is don't give up. Persistence pays off in cannabis grown as well.
But the point is that it's the right. It's the right to be able to do it.
It is, exactly.
And I think that is kind of, I mean, there are lots of people in the kind of different communities that would kind of say, well, we can't, we'll never get the right to grow over the line. And I go, well, I can see why it would be more difficult, and I can see what the reasons why things are pushing towards a more pharmaceutical, like a cannabis pharmaceutical kind of in the end. But I don't know. I still think I can't be, because I don't smoke anymore. Because I used to smoke joints, but I used to enjoy that, but that's not part of my life anymore. So I don't. It's not the most important thing to me. I'm not that so romantic as I used to be about the plant. I used to be romantic about it, but it's kind of MS sorted that one out. You know?
Yeah, fair enough. Can I ask you actually before you go about Gino Kenny's bill and your opinion on that? It hasn't been published yet. We don't know the contents of it. But if say Luke Ming Flanagan's bill, if it was to be anything like that, where I think in that he allows up to an ounce for personal possession. I think there's the right to grow 4 plants at home, I think is inside Luke's bill. What do you think of Gino's bill? What do you think will be in it? And do you think it has any hope at all?
I'll tell you, I'll unpack that and say that I don't know what's in Gino's bill to start with. And,
any expectations, though? Any expectations? What would you expect?
Well, I think we have pointers, because Gino is part of the council, this medicinal cannabis council.
Yeah.
So they are very much about seeking to fix the access, the medical cannabis access program.
They don't support the home grower at all.
I don't think. No, I don't think that'll be there.
No, yeah, that they don't support it. The Irish Medicinal Cannabis Council don't anyway. It's up on their website. It specifically says it that they don't support. They won't be supporting the right to
Grow your own.
grow their own or something along those lines. Anyway, they don't believe patients should be growing their own medicine. Is kind of the wording. But yeah,
Yeah, and I think I don't. I think the reason for that is that the see it as being more difficult to get through
interesting.
legislatively,
Yeah,
and um,
you think tactically they've removed our ability to grow, and you don't think money plays a part in that at all, and maybe they're going to argue quality as the reason why, quality control. Do you think, is that what you're suggesting?
no, I'm not suggesting that.
No, is that what you're saying, like as in like why they're not going to have it in there? Like you were saying there, you would expect cannabis growing, home growing, not to be in there. And the reasoning I think you were kind of saying was the government wouldn't be comfortable with it, or it wouldn't be easy to pass that.
It'll be less. Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
mean. It'll be less comfortable and easier for the likes of Kate O'Connell's and stuff like that to
yeah,
go. Oh well, you can't assess what's plant by plant. If people are self-medicating, then it's not. But the great problem here is that as much as and I'm going to have Vera and Deborah and like the epileptic kid situation. I mean, look at everybody understand that's a very simple thing. And that's really a thing about microdosing. And that has to be very precise, and has to be, their oils have to be very specific and very precise. And even, I mean, you talk about Ava. Ava's one type of epilepsy. Deborah's kids is another one. The lady in Belfast, it's another type. They're all different
yeah,
types of epilepsy.
yeah.
It's so complex. So you kind of have to separate them. And I kind of see it like that. I really see it like that. That these are all different conditions, and that's going to be our motivation. Let's say within this kind of Canna Clinic that we're seeking to set up. It's about kind of identifying the condition, separating the conditions, recognizing that one there, and recognizing that there is no cure for cancer, but there is things that are proved. There is studies showing that there is preventative. There's studies showing that absolutely with and the likes of, I'm here with the CBG in the last few days, and really I can see the anxiety relief immediately. You have a puff of CBG, it's just so totally different, and you can just see how people just chill out, and so. It's like that's complex, Martin, and that's why it makes it difficult for broad brushstrokes of grow your own. But
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I keep on. I totally feel that I just love the cooperative and in terms of and what you have here. However, it's achievable. How come they're doing it here? You know, why can it not be? Why can we not find, like in 2021, why can we not sit down and find a way of making this okay, that people can find the way that they want to because there's a million people want to do edibles. Most people, I'm an experienced smoker. Do you know what I mean? I'm an experienced user for a lot of years. Most people aren't. So most people want a different type of getting. They want edibles. They want different things, and that's where it's got to go. And so it shouldn't be. There's no. It's not even about. I don't see. It's about the right to grow. The right to grow. I just see it as a fundamental right,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
the fact that it is a fundamental right. It's a plant, and so. But the thing is that you just have to find a way of regulating the clubs.
Yeah.
And why not? Why? How can they not be a way to regulate them?
Oh, it's not a
It'll,
difficult thing.
it'll eventually happen here in Spain. I'm sure it'll happen here soon because it's ridiculous, and everybody knows it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only because they have problems with different politics at the moment. That PP, there's whoever's in power. There's some of them are very anti, some of them are for. There's a left-wing government supposedly here at the moment, and Podemos and Poseo, which is like they're quite left-wing, and this should be a real time when you believe that they'll get things over the line. Podemos is like those were the guys who were born out of the Indignados in the
Yeah.
Occupy movement. I don't know if you remember the Occupy movement, which happened in
Remember that, yeah.
New York, where they occupied a bunch of squares all around Spain. So that out of that Occupy movement, became a group called Indignados, and those Indignados formed a party called Podemos, and they've now actually finally, they're proper in power now, and but they're in a coalition, and so the thing is that it's always a difficulty with politics, and in Ireland is just so there's a wall, such a barrier, with two parties have run that country for how long? For the entire.
They're losing grip now, though.
They're losing grip,
Yeah.
and that's why my feeling is that demographically they're gone, and it's only a matter of time, and eventually. And I don't believe it's a question of left or right or this or that. I think there just has to be issues, and this is an issue. And I mean, the Shinners. The problem with the Shinners is their history is too near. It's not long ago they were kneecapping boys up around Derry and everywhere for dealing and having a very bad history.
Well, they were only kneecapping the dealers who weren't on their payroll, who weren't paying the taxes to them, the guys who were paying the taxes weren't getting kneecapped at all. Like, this is one thing I always I love the Irish part of that, is because when the war for independence, what have you, when we had the IRA and things like that, they were robbing banks, they were robbing post offices and stuff. But along came drugs, and ex-drugs was like, yeah, no, fuck, why are you robbing a post office? We just sell some drugs there, or we just tax the local drug dealer, and sure, we don't need to rob the banks anymore. And that was a big shift, actually, in the Irish scene, from bank robbing to drug dealing for the likes of the IRA and some of those the Shinners.
I wouldn't be so sure of that. And I lived in Northern Ireland for quite a few years as well. And my experience of it is that they just have a difficult relationship with it, because they've had a community policing thing. That it's not a blanket six county. It's in different parts of the six counties. And I mean, I remember I lived in Port Stewart for quite a while. There was only one Catholic family in the whole of Port Stewart. They called it, they're the Dailies. Everybody knows that who they were. And so there's different. It's like it's another complex issue. But the big drug dealing was mainly in the period of time I was up there, the UFF, UVs, and they coming out of Ballymena. Everything came in through Ballymena. Yeah. And so
but you even go back as far as alcohol prohibition in the US and how that impacted on Irish. We exported a lot of alcohol to the US, and they exported guns back here in return to help with our fight for independence. And that was done again through some of the Shinners and different organizations like that as well, I suppose. But yeah,
I think it's just too close. It's just too.
Yeah.
I think they'll turn. In a flash, and I think it'll happen where maybe a couple of what do they call them, Ardèches away from it getting up. There's a few voices beginning to appear at Ardèches, and I think, but the nature, the demographic shift. In the end, these people want power. They're politicians. They exist for power, and in the end, Sinn Féin will never be a ruling government party. They'll have to be a coalition, and it's going to be like that for a long, long time. So the point is that we, as activists, and we should get stuck into Sinn Féin, because they're going to be a player, and that's the thing. So the further we get into Sinn Féin, then that's the future in terms of how politics is changing in Ireland, because they're not going to be everything. I mean, the people before profit will be there, all the rest of them will be there, but who's going to make the biggest party? And it came very close the last time. And so the Greens, though, have shot themselves in the foot. But look, we're getting into politics, and I've no interest in it.
Yeah. No, but come here, Stephen, thanks very much. I think we've covered all bases there. And for lack of boring everybody on politics, I think this is a good spot to park it until the 3rd of February, when we get to pick it up and switch the roles around a little bit. where I'll do a bit more talking and you can do a bit more listening.
All right. Okay, man. Cheers and stay blazed.
And there you go, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that conversation there with myself and Stephen Garland. And guys, it's Stop My PPMS is the website for Stephen Garland, and it was the Irish Cannabis Clinic that Stephen will be launching those series of talks on that website. Yeah, find him on Facebook. I'll share links to the talks as they come up. The 3rd of February is going to be the first of the talks, and it's going to be featuring myself alongside Graham De Barra, and we're going to talk about activism and Ireland and drug policy. So thanks for listening, guys, and don't forget, stay blazed and keep her lit. Much love. Peace.